I don't know if you've noticed, but it's not a great time for journalism right now. This unfortunately means that a lot of really great pieces tragically fly under the radar. I was introduced to one such magnum opus, and I knew it had to be shared with the wider world. Walgreens replaced fridge doors with smart screens. It's now a $200 million fiasco. The startup promised the pharmacy chain its high-tech coolers would track shoppers and spark an in-store ad revolution. This piece was written by Austin Carr, and I'm gonna link it down below. And while you're here, why don't you click on it? Open it in a new tab. YouTube lets you do that. You can still watch this and open the article. Scroll for a bit, click on an ad, give this dude some revenue, because while it is a Forbes piece, it is still journalism in its purest form. The refrigerated section at the flagship Walgreens on Chicago's Magnificent Mile was glowing with frozen food and bottled drinks, but not for long. Where the fridge cases were previously lined with simple glass doors, there were door-sized computer screens instead. These smart doors obscured shoppers' view of the fridge's actual contents, replacing them with virtual rows of the Gatorades, bagel bites, and other goods it promised were inside. The digital displays had a distinct advantage over regular glass, at least for the retailer: ads. When the proximity sensors detected passers-by, the fridge doors started playing short videos hawking Doritos or urging customers to check out with Apple Pay. This man is a poet. By the way, I found out what that Walgreens looked like in December of 2023, and Jesus Christ. So the company behind this abomination is called Cooler Screens, or at least they were at the time of this article's publication. Now they go by Cooler X, which, sure, add an X. Tell me even less about you. By the way, when I tried to visit their website, this happened. Once you proceed into the danger, you notice a promo video where it seems that they have completely abandoned the screen doors concept. Because it's stupid. And I'm not saying that to be facetious. I think anyone watching this realizes that this is a stupid idea. Replacing fridge doors, which are clear, to display ads which obscure the stuff inside that you are trying to sell. You don't need an MBA to see why this is a terrible idea, but luckily I have one, so let's dive on in. My background here is that in addition to having an overinflated graduate degree, I also worked at my local Walgreens in the summer of 2015, which, fun fact, was 10 years ago. My job was a part-time beauty advisor, and I would advise people to be more beautiful. No, I was part of Walgreens' poorly thought out attempt to be a leader in the beauty industry. Because see, back then, beauty YouTube was an all-consuming thing, and naturally, brands and distributors wanted a piece of the pie. Sephora's and Ulta's weren't as ubiquitous as they are today. For example, in the town I lived in, we didn't get an Ulta until a year after I moved. So, in theory, the market might have been wide open if Walgreens could do a single goddamn thing right. Okay, let's set the scene. This is a town of about 30,000. Who is the competition in terms of purchasing beauty products? Well, for one, there was the other Walgreens about a 7-minute drive away. Then you had Walmart, Target, a Dillard's at the mall limping along on life support, and a Sephora inside JCPenney, in the small town I worked in. It's not a great market, but it's not impossible to overcome. So what were my metrics? At least 40% of sales for the entire store had to come from what was called the red zone. The red zone was basically like cosmetics, skincare, body care, hair care, that sort of thing. And it had to be rung up at the beauty designated cashier counter, otherwise it didn't count. Now, you would think if Walgreens was so determined to be a beauty destination, it might at least try to set itself apart. Most retail chains had your standard brands, your Maybelline, your CoverGirl, L'Oreal, etc. Could Walgreens draw people in with up-and-coming lines people couldn't get anywhere else? Well, they sure tried. But maybe the reason why they weren't sold elsewhere is because no one wanted them in the first place. Have any of you ever heard of Noni Creme Color Prevails? No? There was a display of it right next to my register. I think I sold 3 of their products, and at least one of those I bought just because I was curious. It was fine. Not to mention, anytime they had a really decent line like Circa Beauty or CYO, it inevitably goes kaput as soon as it establishes a cult following because Walgreens is obsessed with acquiring businesses that they can't manage. CEO of Cooler Screens Arsen Avakian discussed the concept that would become Cooler Screens with friends in Chicago business circles, including Walgreens CEO Greg Wasson. As head of Walgreens from 2009 to 2015, Wasson is most remembered for overseeing its fraught international merger with Alliance Boots, a European chain. But he also bet on technology, gussying up its pharmacies with tablets, acquiring e-tailer drugstore.com, and leading the company's $140 million investment in a then promising startup called Theranos. Oops. Give this article every Pulitzer. So, knowing what we know about Walgreens, we might be able to guess at how this stupid idea came to be, but let's read the text instead because oh my god. The big idea behind Cooler Screens was to digitize in-store real estate that Avakian and Wasson saw as wasted. In lieu of glass freezer doors, Avakian proposed a giant iPhone-like screen that could amass loads of consumer data for advertising, track product inventory, and update prices. Wasson was particularly excited about the latter feature, envisioning that the technology could be used to automate discounts digitally. Working at Walgreens since the 1980s, he had witnessed what a time suck it was for employees to manually change all the shelf stickers. I can attest to that last part. Sometimes my shift would include shelf sticking, and I would be there until 2 in the morning. That said, I don't think the solution is in screen doors, because it's stupid. Avakian and Wasson said that based on their PowerPoint presentation, the company approved a 6-store pilot program for 2018. I would pay an insane amount of money to see that presentation. If the hacker group Anonymous wants to do something really fun. Behind the scenes, the ads were comically patched together, says Daniel Simmons, the then motion graphic designer for Cooler Screens. Without custom media assets, Simon recalls squashing and stretching TV spots for brands like Bud Light to fit the bizarre dimensions of his fridge. I was basically butchering an entire ad campaign with zero oversight, he says. Cooler Screens says brands and their agencies produce all the creative content, not the startup's employees. Incredible. Okay, let's back up a minute and think about this mess so far. I get that in retail, profits are slim, and you want to do everything you can to get an edge over your competitors. But here's the thing. When a startup approaches you and says that they want to run technology in your store that no one else is using, ask yourself, is no one using this technology because it's so innovative, or is no one using it because it's stupid? These internet-connected fridge panels frequently flickered, crashed, or showed the wrong product. Every so often, they caught fire, but store managers were stuck with them. As part of a 10-year contract with Walgreens for a split of the ad revenue, Cooler Screens had installed 10,000 smart doors at hundreds of US locations like this one. It planned to install 35,000 more. I mean, why stop a bad thing, right? Anyways, this all comes to a head in December of 2023 when the screens just completely shut down and went black. Meaning that not only did they no longer work, but they actively obscured the products inside. Employees tried to galvanize, God love them, but there's only so much you can do. And naturally this went viral on Reddit. So, knowing what we know now, is anyone else struggling to see how this was ever thought of as a good idea? The article mentions that the board did approve a test run, and when I googled Walgreens Board of 2015, this pixelated image came up. So, not to stereotype or anything, but I don't necessarily trust these dudes to be the forefront of technological advancement. It's also just such a needless expense that will occur additional needless expenses. I couldn't find too much in the way of logistics, but I gotta wonder what the electricity bill was like after these screens were installed. And costs like that matter when you're Walgreens and you're barely hanging on. Like, I don't know about you, but at my Walgreens, it's bad. There's only like one pharmacy tech there. Store is a ghost town. There's like dust collecting on shelves. It's not good. I understand that after the Theranos embarrassment, they probably really wanted a win. But this Cooler Screens fiasco just shows that they are incapable of learning from their mistakes. If you listen to the podcast Bad Blood, which I highly recommend, there is an entire episode about Walgreens agreeing to install Theranos wellness centers in its stores, and the process was abysmal. The podcast goes into greater detail, but they just looked at the machines a bit, went to lunch, and then signed on the dotted line. And it would appear that the same due diligence was granted to Cooler Screens. By the way, let's check back in with that article. How's that going? In March 2022, lawyers for Walgreens sent a second notice to Cooler Screens complaining of breach of contract. The first, 6 months earlier, had claimed widespread freezer glitches. This one alleged that the screens were continually failing to meet their goals for net ad revenue. Walgreens says that each smart door ended up bringing in just $215 that year, or a mere 59 cents a day, about half the contractual minimum and a pittance when measured against the thousands of dollars that each store cost to build and install. Cooler Screens said it met its obligations and that the ad revenue figures are inaccurate. If you are curious how Cooler Screens was measuring everything, rest assured, they weren't, at least not with math that I can understand. Avakian claimed that its displays garnered almost 100 million monthly impressions and gave brands a healthy sales bounce, but these people doubted the math, which was tracked in spreadsheets. They say the door sensors could mistakenly count views from a store associate walking to the bathroom, or an abandoned shopping cart, or even a shadow or beam of light. How the heck can we accurately count impressions if we can't defeat the sun, says a former senior developer. Avakian denies that the analytics are inaccurate, stressing that they are independently audited and the smart doors are equipped with an expensive sensor. I love that they apparently just installed this with no agreed upon plan to measure success. That's why you have a plan before you do the thing, guys. And I know a lot of my viewers have worked in retail and are probably already seeing all the stupid reasons why this won't work. Like when I mentioned the shelf sale stickers and what a pain they are to install, maybe some of you started thinking about the shelves themselves and how difficult something can be to keep in stock. And that's difficult even with a fully functioning business. Sometimes you just don't have something in stock and you don't know when it's coming back. A clear door would communicate that, but could a screen? Anyways, if you're curious what the Walgreens CEO at the time thought of this thing, don't be. Then CEO Rosalind Brewer seemed more upset with the fridge's technical performance. Their digital planograms could be adjusted over the internet, but they depended on store staff to physically stock the goods accordingly. Too often, customers opened a door projecting rows of milk only to discover soda or empty shelves instead. The internal cameras were supposed to detect and dim out-of-stock items, but they were inconsistent. I guarantee you, even if that feature did work, the average customer would not understand it. I mean, pre-Cooler Screens, do you know how many customers asked me to check the back for a product I fully knew we did not have, as if the back is just this beautiful Eden of fully stocked products I can easily grab anytime I want? I can just picture some irate customer screaming that they saw Breyer's 3-ounce brownie a la mode on the screen, and they are not leaving until it is in their hands. God damn it. So I mentioned that these screens crashed like Microsoft Edge, and I'm sure you're probably wondering how that could possibly happen. It turned out an electricity issue was likely causing the crashes, which wasn't necessarily Cooler Screen's fault. Walgreens store infrastructure was often dated, according to Cooler Screens, and power surges tripped up the displays. You don't say. Anyways, this whole thing blows up. Ha, with threats of blackmail from both companies, evidence taken from security cams, alleged fraud. Like I said, it's a great article. Please read it. I'll link it below. So, what of Cooler Screens? Well, I guess they're Kroger's problem now. Yeah, despite everything I have just read and said, it looks like they're going full steam ahead. Can't wait to see how that all works out. Also, before you start thinking that Walgreens might have finally gotten its shit together, let me burst that bubble for you. In March 6th of this year, Walgreens was acquired by private equity firm Sycamore Partners. And if you're not familiar with private equity, it's more or less the cause of why that Panera shortbread cookie you remember loving so much now tastes like gluey plastic. Anyways, I'm predicting a slow and painful crawl towards bankruptcy for Walgreens, at least not in part because PEstakeholders.org said this. On the 2023 PESP Private Equity Labor Scorecard, Sycamore Partners received a failing grade of 51.73%. Sycamore Partners' portfolio companies are responsible for many reported serious OSHA violations, those in which workplace hazards could cause serious physical harm or death. Staples has had 32 OSHA violations, totaling $85,402 in fines since it was acquired by Sycamore Partners. 23 of those violations are considered serious. All Sycamore Partners portfolio companies measured are retail firms. None had a union presence. So this'll end well. Feel free to beg Kroger not to be a part of this, but apparently fridge doors have a fraught history in the world of retail. I originally found this article on the subreddit Long Reads, where users spinning colors linked to the Hyperfix pod and said, coincidentally, I just listened to this podcast about why so many grocery stores have fridges without doors. TLDR, it's historically to make it easier for housewives with children to grab stuff off of the fridge shelves as they push their cart through the store. And yes, it's an environmental/energy nightmare. And it's only gonna get worse. If I could leave you with just one takeaway, it's that when journalism like this comes along, please share the hell out of it. Click on ads, email it to your friends, thank the publisher, because this piece forever changed how I saw retail fridge doors and the future of Walgreens. And if that's not journalism, I don't know what is.